Thomas.
Rachel, what are you doing?
I'm here to help you.
Help me how?
First, put down the plate. Drink this.
What is that?
Vodka.
Does Mom know that you're here? Because it's probably past 10.
Don't worry about it. Just start from the beginning and tell us what happened.
Generation Lost.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Generation Lost, the show about movies with Bryn.
And Jeremy.
And also today we have Chris and Molly from And Introducing.
What's up? We should have picked the same thing to say. Should we say what's up or how about what's up? One,
Okay.
2, 3. What's
Hello.
up? Oh, god damn it. This is improv comedy, so he's got that like button where he, ugh.
He says the wrong thing
Well,
on
you-
purpose for
Look,
the
From
laughs.
an audio producer
laughs.
standpoint, we should say different things so you can differentiate our voices and tell who is whose.
Otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell.
You wouldn't be able to tell.
possibly
I'd never know.
Yes.
God.
That's what they're always saying. All
Yeah.
white podcasters sound the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the show about movies that doesn't take itself too seriously. And this is the final episode of the Twee Thousands.
That's right. It's 2009, and it's 500 Days of Summer.
It's
And
no longer going to be the Twee Thousands anymore.
It's no longer going to be the 2000s. We're now moving firmly into the Obama age. 2009 is the year after. He's taken office, and this is like the first year of Obama, and suddenly the 2000s is just over.
They're over.
Although, and we can get into this. We were clocking when we were watching this movie last night how much this is that you can tell this was definitely written immediately pre the recession.
Yes.
It was boom time.
How do you mean?
You could just move to LA from a random town in Michigan with with a secretary job.
Yeah.
That job would have been cut.
Or you could potentially like study and train to be an architect and just like decide you didn't cut it and then just like walk into a greeting card company and be like, I'm going to do this now. And it's like totally fine, as opposed to somebody who like is showing up there being like, okay, so I studied English at Barnard. And then I had an internship at the writing company of blah, blah, blah. And then from there I had,
I did
the
3
job
years
was
of
just like,
McKinsey.
yeah.
It did sound like you were going to say you did.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounded like you were going to say they had an internship at Rite Aid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I would love to do that.
Well, I learned from the experience of reading so many greeting cards at my internship at Rite Aid about how to be passionate about it. Like the idea that this job would just be something you like kind of write greeting cards, as opposed to like every job being like, oh my god, if I don't write these greeting cards, I'm going to like default on my $80,000 in student loans. Just little things like that.
The bloated economy
sure.
of the creative class that has since been murdered and I don't think has actually come back yet.
Yeah, I also like the absolute lack of cell phones, which people owned.
Yes,
They
They're
did.
just like it was still like kind of gauche to include them in film.
Yeah.
Where it was like everyone knows they exist, but like we don't want people to look at our movie and be like, "Oh, it's the 2009."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everyone has a razor.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just before, like, there probably are iPhones at this point, but it's just before it's beginning to become like
You have to have one.
ubiquitous. Yeah, I think people still were really into Blackberries at this point.
Totally.
And Palm Pilots.
Yeah.
People had Palm Ones.
I had a Nokia flipper at least until midway to 2009. I think I got my first iPhone as a gift when I graduated college in 2009, or maybe I think I bought it myself.
When
I got my first iPhone in 2012
Same.
when the world ended.
When that didn't happen, you were like, "Phew, well, I guess I should update my iPhone technology finally if I'm going to interface
Damn, I
with
guess
a
I'm.
post-apocalyptic
I guess I'm
world."
gonna finally get into Angry Birds.
wow, I have become a fruit ninja. Oh boy. Yeah, I think I got a some sort of Samsung in like 2011 or something, but they didn't. They were pretending like they don't exist still. That was a really weird era, right at the end of that decade, where they're just
Yeah.
like, yeah, we wrote a bunch of stuff that didn't really rely on that, and so they're gonna like sleep in their bed and be like, I wish I could call them.
Yeah.
I wish I
Looking
could
directly at my landline, waiting.
yeah, somehow contact them. So yeah, but we're not going to talk about the movie quite yet,
Although we already have.
although we already have begun. But talking about iPhones and iPods will help us get into why you're here, which is to help us navigate and commentate on something we've sort of sorely overlooked. I mean, or just like under talked about.
Under
I should
talked
say.
about. Because
It's
it
like-
comes into every one of these movies, but it's the music of the decade. And specifically around these Twee Thousands movies, we constantly are talking about the soundtracks of these movies and how big a part of the point of these movies in some ways is the soundtrack, right?
Right.
Like you have constant needle drops in every one of these. You have constant call outs of the music that is happening around them. Like you have Zach Braff saying, listen to the Shins, it'll change your life. You have
Oh.
Jason Bateman saying, listen to Sonic Youth, it'll change your life. You know, like these are so firmly sewn into these scripts. And it's interesting because it felt, and maybe you guys can talk about this a little bit, like it felt a lot of times in the 2000s like there was this sort of cultural lockstep between like music and film and television and like the critic class,
Yeah.
right? And everybody, for like one glorious decade, like everybody liked the same music. Like
Yeah.
I always felt like the thing with nu metal and grunge and punk and all these different musical things that had come before it was that like critics overall were like, this shit is stupid and not cool, and kids liked it, and people liked it, but critics thought it was kind of stupid.
Yeah, the new metal was the really disliked stuff. And then I guess that was stuff like certain types of rap that was
Yeah.
beginning to become popular. Like maybe Cisco. And
like party rap.
Like
kind
party
of?
Yeah,
rap.
like party
that was more,
rap,
That
yeah.
was not as much about like the 90s, like the rap that people were afraid of when Ice Cube used to rap about killing people. It was about like looking nice and going to the club and
Right.
spending a lot of money on cars and stuff.
Rhyming party
Right.
with Bacardi.
Yes, exactly.
yes,
Yeah.
T.I.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
People weren't like, yes, this is great. And also, Ludacris was really underrated at the time
Oh yeah.
for making extreme bangers.
Yeah, they're still wildly popular.
But in terms of like rock music, you're right.
Yeah.
It just felt like, I guess there was
totally,
like,
yeah, I totally
Go
get
ahead.
what you're playing at, because 9/11 killed nu metal because it was no longer cool to be angry. As we have gone over on our show.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then at that same time, there was this like indie rock revival going on that was cool and detached in a way that was both popular and critically appreciated. And then it was like, I interpreting what you're saying is like, yes, this general sigh of like critical commercial relief of being like, finally, a nice, clean, stylistic form of indie rock that is both cool and generally popular that we can like all get behind and put in iPod commercials, but that people seem to genuinely like, that isn't
Yeah.
this angry, abrasive, weird thing where it's white guys with dreadlocks who also have turntables with just drop tuned bass. No, thank you. Let's
no
get,
funk music.
yeah, let's
no
get
goth funk.
guys wearing ties, looking nice, playing classy indie rock about doing
Yeah.
the expensive kind of drugs.
Yeah.
Semi hollow body coke music.
Yes.
Yes.
And it harkens back to older music
Yes,
that
and then
like,
we
the
can
parents can get into too.
Yeah, we can reincorporate the indie college rock from the 80s that like never performed at the time, but hey, maybe we can repackage some of those Our Band Could Be Your Life bands now as like, you know what? Weren't these kind of eternally cool? Like you guys all love this, right?
There
Yeah,
was
you loved television.
There was a really good, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to call out the author of it, but in the like kind of hipster dork journal N+1 a few years ago, there was a kind of like retrospective piece about Pitchfork and Pitchfork's influence on music. And one of the main points of it that really kind of stabbed a knife in my tummy and twisted it around, because like I was a big fan of all this kind of music because I was a teenager, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of soft but interesting. Was that, you know, people responded to the Iraq War by like getting together like children's choirs and ukuleles and chimes and what's the thing where you hit a mallet?
Glockenspiels.
You know, we responded with this really intense, really dark energy from the war with like childlike music. And I was, and that's, you know, Kimya Dawson. I'm not a Moldy Peaches hater by any means, but like Kimya Dawson's music in Juno is totally that. Fucking Feist. I love that that first Feist album. But that was in 500 Days of Summer. It's just kind of this like cute, soft, gentle, childlike music.
Yeah, that whole twee wave, things like Mates of State, even though there are Mates of State songs that rock, it's just like there's like a gentleness to
regression.
But even like Arcade Fire was like, their whole thing was like, we are children who lost our parents in a fire.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people forget that there was like this weird lore behind it at first. And then it was like, what does that mean? Also, you're Canadian.
So as
secretly Canadian.
As an exercise coming into this, I put together this playlist this morning of, and it'll be in the description of this or whatever, but it's kind of just like all of what I could remember of the 2000s, basically, of like from the Strokes and White Stripes in 2001 on to 2009 when this movie happens, and like what I saw as kind of like the charting of how this movement, it's not really a genre, right? The indie rock thing. How it kind of changed. And one of the things that I found really interesting is, well, first of all, that there's sort of like a fork in the road right at the beginning, right? And it's between what we're describing now as this sort of gentle, childish indie that also kind of starts to become a bit like bookish a little later on. And it starts to be very like smart and like, you know, being like the Decemberists and Vampire Weekend and very extremely like we're in college sort of shit.
The books.
It's the
books, of course. And then there's this other strain of it that like kind of seems to die about mid 2000s, which is what will now be called indie sleaze, right? Which at the time I think we just called like cool Brooklyn stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
It didn't have a unifying umbrella term at the time. It is kind of freeing to be like, yeah, we can call that indie sleaze. A lot fits under that like that banner now.
Yeah.
I just feel like it was I that word has become like just default. Like there's no point in arguing with it, but I do dislike it only because they just don't seem cool enough to be sleazy. Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes I don't know. A lot of those songs of that of the bands that we're talking about, right? Like a lot of those are about just like doing coke and having sex and
but that's not that. That's just that's just like being normal. I get like it doesn't seem
well,
like,
but it's like I guess it's
not like we're down on the docks playing dice. You know what I mean? It's like
we're seeing it in comparison to like, you know, the
to the child
to the
children,
Decemberists being like, you know, what if I was in the 17th century and I had a fair maiden on my boat?
There's actually probably more dice playing down by the docks in a Decemberist song.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying.
The
like,
real sleaze.
The idea of calling like waking up at noon and getting a Starbucks coffee after a Coke bender is like not really that sleazy to me. It just seems like, oh wow, I have to pay my student loan.
It's just a Tuesday, yeah.
Well, you know, it is chartered against a up and coming millennial generation, which, as you know, has been pointed out many times by our friend and also music critic Matthew Perpetua. Millennials in general, very bookish generation, very
lots of learning,
into process, into doing the right thing on tracks. You know, there's a reason that Harry Potter was the breakout like literary thing of the millennials, and so when you take a bunch of people who are like, my main point in life is to go to college and get the job that I study for. The Cobra snake aesthetic of like a dirty concrete box covered in like the goo of, cake remnants from a Steve Aoki party and like PBR smeared on the ground and like drugs probably like at the time
Maybe.
there was a certain, especially also because we're talking about hip hop too, is like the overarching hip hop aesthetic at that time. On the other side, the like pop music was like the club that is nice and you are dressed in a suit and you are spending a lot of money and you are getting your car that is very expensive valeted. That is the
your outfit is white and immaculate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not the same sleaze as like a 70s New York where everybody's like shooting up in the back of Max's, but it is like there was a sleaze to it. It was sticky.
It's Danny Brown sleaze.
It's sticky, yes. It's sticky. It's having sex in the bathroom at Mars Bar. That's what the indie sleaze thing was.
Listening to Camera Obscura is not sticky.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly, indie stickiness.
But the thing that I found interesting when thinking about it today was the way that it sort of charts a bit to these movies too, right? Where like you kind of in the early end of the decade, we have, I guess, like the kind of the two pillars of these proto Twee Thousands movies would be Royal Tenenbaums versus Lost in Translation. And Lost in Translation, I feel, has sort of an indie sleazeness to it, right? Where it does have like the opening shot is Scarlett Johansson's ass, and like there is sort of like a drunk sort of partiness to it. Whereas Royal Tenenbaums is, that's book shit.
That's very book shit. So out of these like soundtracks, like which ones were important? Do you remember being important to you? We're talking Royal Tenenbaums, Garden State, 500 Days, Juno. Did any of them like hit home? Were they on your uploaded on your iPod?
Garden State, 100%. Especially, I was given a burned copy of Garden State from my first ever like real boyfriend. So like,
oh yeah.
Because I feel like the compilation of these soundtracks at this time was very mixtape-y. Like it was like the music supervisor was making you a little mixtape, and then that then got passed on socially. Like the social disease of Natalie Portman bugging Zach Braff to listen to the Shins. That's what then basically created that social mode in real time of like teenagers across America, because it made, this young man in my, that I was in band class with, allowed him to force a CD on me and say, you need to listen to this. And you know what? He was right. And it was, I don't know, none of those songs slap. That's the main thing I think now. I'm like, Nick Drake doesn't slap, but at the time it was songs needed to be like meaningful. You didn't just, it was the pleasure of discovery and of transference, so that kind of conferred songs on their meaning. So to put a long story short, Garden State was not just a soundtrack, it was a mixtape for me.
It was a way of life.
It was a way of life.
Do you remember what did the, like, so he burnt you a copy of it, did he like do anything fun with the cover?
I think there was Sharpie. I think it was Sharpie writing directly on the CD in Future, and that was also kind of like the test pressing, and then future ones he like went a little bit more ham. This, by the way, this is a young man who eventually kissed another girl during spring break of the same year, and then made two mix CDs for me. One was if I decided to stay with him, and one was if I decided to break up with him. And
he gave you both?
And no, and then I was like, we're done, dude. And he gave me the breakup one. And I was like, honestly, this is kind of a flex. Like, I'm so mad at you, but like, it's like a sophomore.
Did he show you both? Thing. Like, how did this work? Was it like a red pill, blue pill sort of thing?
I believe the promise was that they were both in his backpack, and then he pulled one out. This is the type of thing that, I mean, we'll talk about this when we get to 500 Days, but like the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character, like this soft boy, this sort of malevolent soft boy, like that was a real guy, and people tried to be like that guy.
I'm
mean-
so jealous that you got broken up with by a Mass Effect character.
The first
That's
song,
fucking insane.
the first song on that CD, by the way, was brand new. The Boy Who Blocked His Own Shot.
Oh my god!
Oh,
Holy
God.
shit!
Oh.
It's a miracle I made it out of high school alive.
If
Wow.
it makes you less sad, I'll die by your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked you about the cover of the CD because I definitely was that guy too. I was making all sorts of mix CDs for girls.
Yeah.
I
it's
loved making mix CDs for my friends. It was a great time.
Yeah.
We used to get really complicated with it and like tell little stories with the
Yeah.
titles and
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, I had a great time making this playlist today. Even though I don't like a lot of the music on it, I still had a great
What?
time like trying to like show this sort of progression and whatever.
You don't like this music? This is
No,
like-
I mean I like a good chunk of it, but not all of it.
Okay.
Some of it's
Yeah,
just
no,
in
I
there
don't
for
either.
plot purposes.
I like
Sometimes
the
you need
two.
a little musical exposition.
Exactly. I don't like the Killers, but I put the Somebody Told Me on there.
You're
That's
crazy.
a
The
significant
Killers rock.
song. I'm still tired of that song.
Yeah. No, they have better songs. Their second album is better.
Sam's
Chris,
Town?
what about you? Did you have one of the soundtracks?
Yeah, first of all, the Garden State one. I remember watching that movie, and when he says this, listen to this song. This will change your life. It was the first time I was hearing the Shins was
Ever?
in that movie, and he
Uh-huh.
puts and I was like, he's like, this song will change your life, and he puts the headphones on, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This will change your life. If you do, you have the brain of a 3-year-old. Then I went and then of course incidentally I like heard the Shins through that. They became wildly popular through that soundtrack, and I was like, this sucks. This ain't for me. So no to that one. I honestly
It's because it doesn't slap. Chris
It doesn't
wants,
slap.
Chris wants Natalie Portman to hand him the headphones, and it's
it
LCD sound
dusts.
system. Yeah, crass version.
yes, the
Or-
last like
or
3
it's-
minutes of it.
Or
It's a
the
light dust
Fratellis,
that
yeah.
it does.
Wow, I have not thought of the Fratellis.
The
in
Fratellis
a
would be
minute.
good.
Honestly,
the
of all of them,
Cribs.
it's probably the Royal Tenenbaums one, which I did have, and because it's a combination of the 70s, his 70s punk pulls with the Nico these days and Ferris of Seasons, and
Mhm.
before I even knew it, the Mark Mothersbaugh interpolations of
Yeah.
Hey Jude and stuff from his Mutato Musica Orchestra
Yeah.
that I was really into. So that one meant a lot. None of these other ones, though, I really got into. But I understood it to, yes, be like, this is the movie trying to flex a certain muscle that it has to be like, not only do we have a movie, but we have a whole gestalt because the movie itself is a mixtape. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, kind of impressed me. But all of these leaned into soft songs. I didn't care. I wanted something that could
Yeah.
rip
You didn't
through
like
me.
the soft songs.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of like I was talking about earlier, the locksteppiness of this all, right? I was realizing today that when Garden State came out, those Shin songs were only 2 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, what?
It's kind of like
I think that was, like-
astroturfing the Shins.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like these were all part of like a marketing funnel.
No,
you know?
I mean, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that Garden State made the Shins. I feel,
For sure.
For sure.
Right. I think that Zach Braff it really was. God damn it! I hate that movie too. Still remember trying to describe that movie to my buddies of being like, that movie is like Zach Braff trying to get a blowjob from you. Of being like, I wrote the movie as he unzips his pants. I directed the movie as he takes his dick out, and I starred in the movie as he places your head in front of
I
it.
also made the soundtrack.
And it's all and
I
they're
arranged
all
it.
my songs as he puts his hands behind his head.
I wrote
Wow,
them.
Chris,
I'm in the
disturbing.
Shins.
This is a
Actually,
joke I remember telling in 2005.
Well, it's a very 2005 level joke. For me, Garden State, I
Get his
stand-
ass.
That's not an insult per se. It's just, that's what people
Oh,
talk
Again, I'm
about.
going back into the archives here.
I stand Garden State. I watched Garden State when it came out, and I was like a freshman in high school, and I feel like I didn't quite get it. It was adult life that I didn't understand. And then I actually just watched it a few months ago, and I was like, oh yeah, when you do SSRIs, ecstasy doesn't work on you. That was my takeaway as an adult. I was like, oh right, the receptors get blocked. Anyway, it wins
he's
for
all
that
fucked
alone.
up.
Yeah. But yes, I understand. What
Did
you're
you
saying.
have any of these?
Any of the soundtracks?
Yeah.
I definitely had the Garden State soundtrack. I liked it. I told the story on the episode. I think I liked it until I heard somebody in the line for a Mates of State show say, like, of somebody off screen, said of her, ugh, she likes the Garden State soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And I overheard that, and I was like, I don't like that anymore.
As we were preparing for this episode, I started to realize I didn't have any of these.
Really?
And I didn't have any because I'm realizing that like this decade is very bifurcated between me meeting the guys who, like, before I met the guys who introduced me to the Stooges and after. And like that was like 2004 or 5. So, and right before that, my taste was very different, which was like the 2001, 2, 3, 4. Like, I watched some of these movies, but I like the Matrix soundtrack and like the Spider-Man soundtrack. Like, I was interested in like heavy metal. Like, I listened to, Deftones and Korn, and I was, a little mall goth kid.
Yeah.
I liked Marilyn Manson. I didn't like really get this stuff.
Yeah.
And then like when I met the guys who became my best friends in high school and then like later in college, like then I was like, well, I'm too cool now, very clearly, to listen to like people aping the Stooges or, like I thought of like the Strokes as like limp dick shit because it's like this, there was all this old 70s cool punk that was cooler, and then there was the sad music, and I like the sad music. So I liked songs off of like Garden State soundtrack, but I was like, I never was like into one of the soundtracks.
Yeah.
Because I was weird and annoying.
Cool.
And I was the opposite of cool. I just like I had so many like weird things where I was like, this is like not right. Like I had such like autistic specific things I had to have in a
It's
in a
interesting.
song to
I
get
also
into it.
definitely had a lot of that tendency to be like to be like, people like this, so I don't like it.
Sure.
But for whatever reason, like this, like the indie rock thing for like the first half of this decade at least was just like a big part of my life. I really liked all of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, learning. I mean, that's what that was like. Learning how to learn about music and learning how to like music was keeping up with this stuff. And especially like 2001 to 2005 was really me. Like, that's me in high school. That's me training myself to like keep up with what is going on in current music. Then I go off to college in 2005 and start working for the radio station, where the cool thing to like was like Melt Banana. And then I was like, okay, well now I have to learn about like every band that ever existed. And all anything that would be like hype up on the soundtrack to a Zach Braff movie. No, that's loser shit. I need to get it really into like Merzbow and the Dead Sea now.
I am into KO dot now.
so yeah, that the importance of that stuff fell off. But yeah, like but I was speaking to the significance of it because it's like the Royal Tenenbaums soundtrack. I knew that one because I had a buddy in high school who would do stuff like get Entertainment Weekly, and it would be an Entertainment Weekly episode that's like the 50 best movie soundtracks of all time. And then he would go to the Cincinnati Public Library and rent every single CD on that list and burn them all to copies and put them in his big CD library. And then we just drive around listening to the 50 best movie soundtracks of all time, whether they were like Pulp Fiction or the Royal Tenenbaums, or like they said this one's number 27. It's McCabe and Mrs. Miller's. listen to that or whatever. So, it's like different ways that this stuff comes at you. But I mean, I guess what we're all getting at is that for a certain segment of people, the movie music to movies like this was a certain, if you're thinking about the bell curve of coolness, it was like the mid 30s to 40s, like just below the top ubiquity of what is the most popular things, but a signifier of like a certain level of in the know coolness that was in, I don't know, like the 70, I'm trying to make this a percentage things weird, but like the 60 to 90%.
Just imagine a bell.
Yeah. It's not like the
Imagine a
very
bell
top
if you
stuff, but like
could.
right under that, the hip, the pop of the hip indies,
Yes.
Right. That's interesting how it was sort of, I don't know, sort of this like manufactured hippie movement where it was like it's all kind of under this umbrella of like cool. And you can read Paste magazine and find out how to be cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
cool is such a big part of this, right? Because it's like I was thinking about it today as like this era is like the quote coolest that music ever gets, kind of, where it's like it's not actually cool in like a broad sense of like, it's the most significant that music ever gets or whatever bullshit boomers say about classic rock, but rather like this is the most that I feel the mainstream entertainment industry has ever been able to manufacture the idea of cool and make people feel cool.
Yeah.
Where you were able to like, these are all very accessible things. These movies were in your regular movie theater.
Like very
the music
popular.
was available at Best Buy. Like you could get all this stuff very easily.
Towards the end, absolutely.
Even at the beginning, I mean, like the first Strokes album is like one of the coolest albums, and it's on a mainstream major label. It gets a ton of buzz coming out. Like everybody knows about it. Like, but somehow you knowing about it, you get to feel cool because it's like slightly less popular than like
Nickelback.
Nickelback,
Creed.
or whatever the big thing of the day would have been. I don't remember, but
Three Doors Down.
Sugar Ray.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sugar Ray is experiencing kind of a Gen Z TikTok renaissance, so gird your loins.
Dude, I love Sugar Ray.
Good for you,
I fuck
Mark.
with Sugar Ray, yeah.
I love
Mark
those.
McGrath.
Bring the turntables back everywhere. Every
I
band
love
should have
those
a
like
DJ.
the first three record or the two right after the Fly record are great.
But just as we're talking about this, it is funny to think about an era that not that long ago. There's a movie came out 13 years ago. The idea of a genre of sappy romantic movies about people in their 20s driving a genre of music and its relative popularity in the culture seems unfathomable right now.
Well, now because all culture is either made for like babies or boomers. No one gets their romantic drama.
Yeah,
or it's very niche. Like people are watching like Korean versions of 500 Days of Summer, basically.
Yeah. And the proliferation of music at this stage is like so minuscule. Like it's so micro targeted to the people who are interested in it. Like the idea of putting like, I mean, what would the equivalent of it be today? Like a 2 year ago album would be like 100 gecs, right? So like if you put like Money Machine into a movie today, there's like maybe like 1% of the people seeing the movie would be like, Money Machine, and then the rest of the people will be like, what the fuck is happening? Did they make this for the movie? What's happening?
See, now I want somebody to make the meme of listen to the song, it'll change your life, and it's Money Machine.
Oh man, we did one.
I fucking hate that band.
I think like the first or second episode of Album, or somebody did it for. They had him put the headphones on, and it's a Corn Twist.
Oh hell yeah!
Funny.
I'm trying to come up with like a reference of even like what kind of movie coming out today could like possibly generate a like soundtrack that was a blockbuster in the same way that Garden States was, or this whole genre, because again, Royal Tenenbaums soundtrack that was a hit. I'm sure that this soundtrack,
the Life Aquatic one, was an even bigger one.
I'm sure like this soundtrack moved units. But Paper Towns, which the writer of this also wrote, but even that movie's like 6 years old or something.
Pretty old, yeah.
Like
I feel like I could imagine like something like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like,
yes.
Oh yeah.
Even though it didn't have like a big soundtrack, but like, or even like particularly unique music in it. But I feel like that's the kind of movie that you would have to do something like this in. But there isn't like a nascent scene that you can like tap into in the same way that these movies were.
Yeah, and there isn't like the repeatable genre of like every 18 months there's going to be a indie movie that comes out about young people romance in a ostentatiously quirky way that is going to make that splash enough to be considered a big hit and will have an intended soundtrack to it. It's like you're not going to make a repeat Everything Everywhere All at Once, like every 18 months for a whole decade, and every single one is going to have like 100, like a soundtrack album that's full of like 100 gecs and whatever else is hip right now.
I feel like what was very specific about the Twee Thousands was that the scene was very aware of coolness in a way that hadn't really been before, because you had like 60s and 70s were sort of like people were just trying to invent new stuff, and then the 80s was like all reaction, and like, you know, goth was formed, and then there was punk, and like the up until the 90s, like you didn't really have mainstream culture trying to draw from like subcultures in the same way. So like the Twee Thousands is the first time where they're like, look, kids making fun music, and then like the only path to success was getting into magazines.
Yeah.
And getting on. There wasn't like radio was kind of dying anyway.
And like the only shit that was on radio was just butt rock.
Like the coolest thing to be in was indie movies. Like it was like be on MTV still, be in indie movies. Yeah, there was just butt rock and nu metal.
Yeah, like I don't know how it was in y'all's local like music ecosystems or whatever, but like I remember like the big push of the Strokes, the Hives, the Vines, the White Stripes all at once, and they're all on the radio. Like modern rock radio would be playing them, and then like after that, all indie rock was not on the radio.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I sometimes listen to alt radio now because I like to sometimes not decide what music to listen to, and they're still playing the exact same shit as they did in like 2004.
So funny.
They like call it classic rock now, kind of.
Occasionally they will toss in that Glass Animals song Heat Waves from like 2020.
Heat Waves.
But other than that, like they are still playing Brain Stew like nothing has changed. It's kind of nuts. Yeah, there's no
more rock. It's crazy.
Yeah, the rock music is all like, it's all either Imagine Dragons or what are they called? The Greta Van Fleet.
21 Pilots.
Well, 21 Pilots
Greta Van Fleet.
That's what I was saying is like, so like 21 Pilots is sort of in that same sort of Imagine Dragons space of like this sort of, you know.
Yeah, except 21 Pilots are actually good.
Are they? I have no idea.
I don't know about that, but
I like 21 Pilots. They speak to me.
You need to send me a couple songs.
It might be my innate Ohio connection to them. I spiritually know where you're coming from.
They're also like a big like stadium sort of sound type thing, like Imagine Dragons, right?
They're like Coldplay.
Yeah, so it's like it's all either like this stadium sound, or it's like, you know, trying to trick the algorithm into thinking that you're classic rock.
Which now includes Blink-182 and Green Day.
Yes.
It's great.
Super weird.
I love it.
So I think the last thing to talk about this before we get into the movie, and I think it actually transitions nicely into the movie, is as part of this playlist making process, I also found this very interesting dip that happens like after 2006, where Bush gets reelected in 2004, 2005, everything is angry and political, and then 6 and 7, all the music gets really dreary and really sad, and like all of the indie rock is just all about just like bleak, no future shit. And then 2008, out of nowhere, is Vampire Weekend. And then the rest of the decade is just like, everything is great.
Party rock, baby. Party rock takes control.
Let's go.
It becomes party rock. It all
Party
becomes
rock is in the
party
house
rock.
tonight.
Yes.
When does LMFAO come out? That's like
believe
2012, right?
2008 was their
the
like
first
EP,
album.
and then I think 2011 was like their main. That's the party rock anthem.
That's all the ones that you know, right?
Yeah.
What's on their EP?
Shots.
And then I think the "I'm in Miami, Bitch" song was on the EP. I mean, they came.
Okay.
I've
But
delved
2011 was truly the year of party
that
rock.
was the peak. That was the peak of LMFAO, and then they were in the Super Bowl performance with Madonna in 2012, and then they apologized for party rocking, and then they disappeared. forever.
2009 is LMFAO's Party Rock, and 2011 is Sorry for Party Rocking. And Sorry for Party Rocking has Party Rock Anthem and Sexy and You Know It.
But I think I have kind of a pop explanation for your observation of this like mood shift post 2006. We read this book for our podcast and introducing a podcast about words about music called, is it called The Song Machine or The Hit Factory?
It's either called the Song Machine, the Song Machine, the Hit Factory, or the Hit Factory, the Song Machine.
It's by John Seabrook. He's written a bunch for the New Yorker.
It's a really good book.
If I titled it, I would have picked like a slightly different post-colon title, but that's just me.
One or the other, probably.
Yeah. It is the Song Machine inside the Hit Factory.
Inside the Hit Factory, 100%. I'm like,
it
those
really could have been either one.
Yeah. Those are the same to me. It's the same picture. But he talks about this kind of cycle of pop songs, like radio pop songs, which is like you have pure pop, which is like your standard, like it's not going to scare anyone, it's just going to please people. And then that goes into the doldrums, which is like people get bored with that type of pop. And then there's the extremes, which is where people push back against the doldrums by doing brand new things. I think a perfect example of this was Billie Eilish. Being like, I'm a teenage girl covered in spiders, boo. So I think there was a similar thing with indie rock where things were kind of like chipper and cute, and then people got bored with that, and then people got depressed, and then people got happy again.
Yeah.
And also, we had the recession, and then Obama was like, don't worry about it.
Yes, we solved
I'm actually not going to do any of that shit.
Yeah.
You won't figure it out until later. Right now, we're party rocking.
Right now, we're in post-racial America, where white boys can play African music.
Oh my God! Yeah,
and that's kind of what the rest of the decade is. It's Vampire Weekend. It's Merriweather Post Pavilion. It's the beginning of Tune Yard.
It is the beginning of the Floor Tom band.
Yeah.
The only drummer is like a guy with 3 floor toms.
Yeah. 3 floor toms and some obscure piece of African percussion.
Yeah. And then, but all of the drums have like glitter and slime on it, so they go, which is like the Dodos, local natives, kind of. Mm-hmm. There's lots of the War Paint.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of great bands at the end of this decade here. But then that happens, but that's not the Twee Thousands. This is the Twee Thousands, and it's the end. And so we should probably start talking about the movie because we're running very long. So,
sorry,
whoops.
No, it's fine.
We love talking about the trends in the music.
Yeah, we gotta do a nice blowout episode.
Yeah, we literally planned for this.
Yeah. So let's get into our featured presentation.
That's
and
right.
talk about 500.
This is something we say now, by the way. You guys haven't been on the show in a while.
we have new things we say.
You gotta shake it up.
Yes. It's 500 Days of Summer, directed by Mark Webb. I don't know what else.
Spider-Man 2's
Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if he's related to Gary Webb, but I'm going to find out. Mark Webb directed this movie written by Scott Neustrouder and Michael H. Weber, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel and Christina Hendricks' ex-husband and whatever that guy's name is.
The guy from Criminal Minds.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Jeffrey Arend.
Yes.
Chloe Grace Moritz is in it as a too wise for her age sister of Tom.
You're going to be surprised to hear this. She says curse words sometimes.
A couple times she says, "Don't be a pussy."
They loved doing that to that poor girl.
Chloe
It was
Grace.
a Hollywood obsession. Make her say the worst things.
They do. They put her in Kick-Ass and all kinds of weird stuff.
I guess they would have done that to, like, if Mary-Kate and Ashley had been that age at that time, they would have also been like, no family-friendly stuff. You're going to say fuck and shit on air.
You're going to say slurs and you're going to like it.
Yeah, instead of saying, you got it, dude, she's like, suck my dick.
To be in slightly defense of the Hollywood sickos, she sells it.
Okay.
She sells it really well.
No, that's the thing.
Yeah.
She's amazing at it.
Yeah, they accurately diagnosed her talents being like, you know what this girl is really good at? Doing swears with a straight face to camera and being surprising every single time.
And like kind of believable that
Yes.
that's how that girl talks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So why don't Jeremy take us on a trip of what this movie is about?
Oh, sure. So we're telling the story of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's failed relationships to Zooey Deschanel. I don't remember either of their names. It doesn't really
Tom
matter.
and Summer.
Summer.
Oh, her name is Summer, of course.
That's the easy one.
I forgot Tom, to be fair.
He is Tom. Okay, whatever. So Tom and Summer, they
That
have a
doesn't
relationship. We open the film learning that it has failed via a narrator. And the rest of the movie...
Which feels stolen straight from Wes Anderson. And then kind of abandoned.
Kind of abandoned. It comes back every so often, very rarely. And this is, I believe, I may be mistaken, but I believe this is our first instance of a non-linear narrative in the Twee Thousands.
On this series, absolutely. This
Yeah.
feels like very much like, hey, we saw Memento.
Yeah,
That's big, right? You guys like Memento?
that's right. This is a real movie with a non-linear narrative.
Doesn't Nick and Nora's have something like that in it?
Maybe
Where it's like a knight that like jumps around and like what happens?
yeah.
I haven't seen that one.
Then we will put a literal numbering system on to make sure you know at every given moment exactly where you are in it.
Oh,
By
yeah.
numerical
We're gonna-
value.
Well, I appreciate too that they call it 500 days, and it's not really apparent what happens at the 500th day because their relationship has been over for a long time. He I guess speaks his mind to her or whatever, but does he never see her again?
Right, I know.
I guess it's the day he meets Autumn.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Is
that's
the 500th day?
It's the day. That's what's very funny about the 500 days is it starts as the day he sees her, and then ends the day he doesn't care about her anymore.
So I'd never
It doesn't
seen
really
this.
have anything to do with her. Actually.
Yeah, I'd never seen this before. I assumed it was a 500-day relationship, and I was stunned to find out they didn't even date for a fucking year. Are you kidding me?
I
We can get all
He's
into
an
this.
adult.
I know.
It's interesting. This is the first time I'm thinking of this because the opposite movie would be her 290 days of Tom.
It was
Yeah.
30 days of Tom. They had
30
sex
days of
4
Tom
times.
at a push.
Yeah.
It really does seem like they hook up like a couple times.
Yeah.
And he spends almost 2 years crying about it.
100%.
But so we followed their relationship. Zooey Deschanel is new in town. She's the new girl, if you will. And
I won't.
and she gets a job as a secretary at the greeting card company that Tom works at, writing little greeting cards. It seems like he's really good at it. That's part of the story, I guess. He wants to be an architect, but he's just too afraid to push himself or something.
I guess.
And so he works at the greeting card company instead. Very, very, very Gen Xer sort of a plot device there. Having your boring cubicle job that
Yeah.
you hate so goddamn much. It's pretty far into the decade to still be doing that shit. I think you guys are right about that. It's very clearly pre-recession
Yes.
writing.
Yeah, it's
definitely
the
written a
last time
long time
anyone got
ago.
to be that picky about a job
Yeah.
ever again.
Yeah. And what am I missing here? She's like
There's not much to it, honestly.
Well, but she's her character is
She
she's
has
like
bangs.
she's got bangs.
She does have bangs.
You're not gonna believe this. She's got bangs.
She's got blue eyes. She's the only one allowed to wear the color blue in the entire movie.
What a brown movie.
She is
Uh-huh.
depicted as a literal demon who has supernatural powers of seduction and drawing the attention of men.
Oh yeah, they do that whole little backstory of her, like her liking a band, like causes them to chart for the first time, and
in
like,
her state, and like she works at like a hot dog stand, and they increases hot dog sales like 10,000% and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like just by existing, she exudes a almost supernatural power over men.
She has some sort of pheromone that
yeah,
like
exactly.
attracts men
Yeah.
to the.
But then she also she's not interested in a relationship, and that's going to be very important going forward.
She doesn't want anything serious.
She doesn't want anything serious. But then, lo and behold, Joseph Gordon-Levitt likes the Smiths, and that changes everything for her. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt believes in love, and he believes in fate and soulmates and whatever. And so they're kind of an odd couple, if you will. And then they date for a long time. The friction that you could imagine from that premise takes place, and then they break up. And then they kind of do a will they won't they for a little while, and then Summer suddenly marries somebody else, and that's it. That's the movie.
Yeah, a lot of it is him sort of, being upset about her breaking up with him. And you're not. What's funny is that the movie jumping back and forth has almost no bearing on anything because there's not anything really set up and subverted. That's usually the point of it.
I thought for sure when his little sister says, like, I feel like you're just remembering the good times, try to remember the bad times. And I thought for sure we were going to go back through all this shit and see all these times where she was like shitty to him or he was shitty to her, the relationship wasn't working. They don't give us that.
They don't
just
really
keep
give
showing
us
us more cute stuff.
Well, no, like we get one where they're like in the record store and he's like, I don't trust anybody who doesn't like whatever band, and she's like, I don't know that band. He's like, I put it on the fucking mixtape for you. Didn't you listen to it? And
but
she's
that's like the day they break up, isn't it? Because it ends with him being like, let's go get pancakes.
You think that they're going to do a subversion of it, but it is just like she's kind of rolling her eyes and looking off to the middle distance like 5% more than she actually is. When she's like
women do.
Yeah,
maybe she had her period or something.
Yeah.
Which they also mentioned in this movie a couple times.
Yeah.
They do.
Because you kind of feel the whole time, like that there would be a rosy way through forward where you're only seeing through the good parts as it's skipping forward in their relationship where everything is great. And if they really wanted to subvert it, as you go backwards and see like the negative parts, you like to just really lean into the like kind of inherent vacantness of Deschanel's character and like misogynistic viewpoint of
nothing on the inside
of JGL's protagonist, and that she's just being like a huge bitch to him the entire time, and he's like, "Oh, but you're fucking me right now, so I'm still having a good time." And then like later when
listen, many such cases.
Well, that's the thing. So what you kind of come away with, or like you're sort of thinking while you're watching the movie, is like, what is the point here? Like, why is this not a rom-com? What are they trying to say? And I feel like they're trying to. There is some level of acknowledgement, right? Like this movie is about being a little bit selfish and self-centered and sort of realizing as you grow up or you go through this relationship, you go through a breakup, that you were selfish and it wasn't all this other person's fault. You were kind of being an asshole too. And so that wasn't the love of your life. Someone else will be, maybe.
Yeah.
I think the problem I have with this movie is that it never really lets him have it. Like he never really feels any guilt or responsibility for the shitty things he did. Like you sort of realize that he wasn't paying attention to her.
Yeah.
Like that's shown, but it's like, what about the fact that you like don't care about her as a human at all? Like,
right. Or
what about the fact that you never acknowledge, like he's on a date with some redhead or whatever, and she's like, sounds like she told you explicitly she didn't want a relationship and you didn't give a shit about that, and then he's just like, wow, shut up. And then like that's like the audience is supposed to be like he's being a dick, but the movie wants to have it both ways, where it's like he is a dick, but don't you remember being that much of a dick? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, yeah, but I felt bad about it. Or like, there's got to be some level of change. And it never feels like he changes. Yeah. It always wants you on his side somehow, even while it's trying to show you that he's being a dick.
I think it's trying to explore a specific time in, sort of like post third wave feminism relationships where women can do whatever the fuck we want. Good for us.
Right.
But then also like I think the movie was trying to ask the question, what is a relationship? Why does anyone want one? What does it mean to be in a long-term committed partnership? And all we see from this relationship is them going to the movies, going out to the record shop, hanging out, giggling in a park. That's like the first fucking 2 weeks of a relationship. There is nothing, They don't meet each other's families. They don't have any real problems. They don't fight about anything other than her kind of being in a bad mood. So I thought, I was like, I get what they're trying to do with this idea of this amorphous, like contemporary concept of like what, anyone now can do anything that they want. Everyone has birth control. Everyone has condoms. The internet is happening. You could meet someone online if you wanted to. So like, what are we all really doing here? And it doesn't answer that question. All it does is like feel bad for him that he wasn't on the same page as his not girlfriend, which yes, the tiny child is right. Don't be a pussy. Ask if you are in a relationship or not.
Right, but it's also like it never even grapples with that. Like you're saying, like it's not just that he doesn't say what are we or whatever. It's like he doesn't ask like basic questions. He's like, "Are you saying that if I fuck somebody else, you won't be mad?"
Yes.
Like
there are no boundaries.
They
never even discuss like are we exclusive?
That's really like the main thing he's talking about. It's not even like, do you want to be with me for the rest of your life? It's like, are we even like in a like, do you expect commitment of any kind from me?
Do we call this a thing? What do we do?
Like that's like a high schooler's level idea of like this conversation.
Yes, and it's like the entire role again, like Zooey Deschanel's character, she is like such a cipher because it's like all the good times are her being like 55% enthusiastic about him.
Oh yeah, this movie is so zanned out. I feel like the way everyone is talking, be like, "I'm sorry tonight. I'm just really tired."
And like, again, I mentioned this before, but I was just clocking how much of it is like she'll make like 2 seconds of eye contact with him, even when in the parts where she's supposed to be like it's supposed to be going good and she's interested in him. She'll make like 2 seconds of eye contact with him and then just start staring off into the middle distance, like mid sentence.
Which
I guess is supposed to be like
blow up doll.
Part of like. Again, how his perspective is like, oh, this is going great. And she's like, not actually that interested. So like the good part is her being like 55% interested in him. And then him being like, this is awesome. I'm so great. Glad this happened. And then her dipping to like 45% interested in him and him being like, I'm going to murder myself. I'm going to take a gun I'm going to kill myself and kill everyone around me.
She used to look at me for 2.5 seconds and now she looks at me for 2.1 seconds.
Yes.
It's over.
But yeah, as you're saying, the movie wants you to be on his side the entire time, to be like going through this emotional turmoil of him, and I guess that's the point of it, to be being like, oh, he just doesn't understand what's going on here. But it's like there's one time when he tries to have one conversation, and all other time, it's like the real argument this thing makes is like because I believe that we are in a relationship, we should be in a relationship. And I think that there's something interesting there in a way where it's like, if we're doing all these behaviors where it's like we're hanging out all the time, we're fucking, we're like basing our plans around each other. Like, you give me all these things. Should be some kind of mutual expectation there. But then they have that conversation. She's like, yeah, not really. And he's like, well, I'm going to go destroy every plate in my house.
Well, also like that scene specifically is immediately following a situation in which I is also sort of this like, are you allowed to be, how much of a feminist do I have to be as a man, like scene where this guy just walks up to her and starts hitting on her and she's got it under control and she's like, not interested, man, thanks a lot. And then he like is walking away and is just like making fun of her and him. And then he just like out of nowhere clocks the guy. Yeah. And then he gets in a bar fight.
Yeah. Well, it happens when the guy well, first of all, it's when he says boyfriend. Right. That's clearly the trigger there, but it's when he shifts his focus away from Zoe and onto Joseph, and he's like, all right, well, fuck you then, dude. I'm gonna fucking fight. Like I felt so much. That's the only time in the movie I feel like I really felt sympathy for him, and I was kind of like, "This is some bullshit that's happening right now." Is like, that was his fight too. That was as much his fight as it was her.
Totally.
That was the drunk guy at the bar absolutely shifted focus onto him. That was 100% within the realm of things he was allowed to do. Was fuck that guy up. In fact, he was kind of supposed to in that situation. I feel.
No, I don't know about fist fighting in a bar at all. So I can't like. I don't. Is that you'd feel like fuck you? I'm gonna punch you.
Yeah, if a guy said some shit like that to me, I would absolutely probably fight. I'm a middle-aged father, and I would still do it.
Still now.
Molly, would you want me to punch that guy? How would you feel if I punched that guy in that situation where he had done all that shit to you, said all that like overtly nasty shit, and then turned to me and being like, "What? You're what? You're married to this pussy?"
Yeah, I don't have any emotional problem with it. I don't have a practical problem of like assault charges and hospital visits, but like the pure
I can deal with it.
masochistic or whatever. not what's the word for when men are menly?
Machismo.
The machismo of it, I understand, and yes, you are allowed to punch a man in the face if he turns his ire onto you.
See, I would have assumed that the rule here is like you don't ever punch someone unless they like come at you, like physically. No, you just clock a guy for being like fuck you.
It's not just a fuck you. It's not just a fuck you. It's a distinct disrespect.
Sure.
That there's no real other way around
disrespect.
it.
Disrespecting my wife. Okay. And look, he can come up and he could talk a bunch of shit to my wife. He could come up and talk a bunch of shit to me personally. But if he disrespects the relationship, that if he says that I'm not worthy of her, if he says that she's not worthy of me, moron, then we gotta fight.
But anyway,
this is an interesting conversation that the movie has no interest in
having
whatsoever.
As
soon as they get back and she's like, "I wish you didn't do that.
Yeah, that was
you acted
stupid.
uncool." He doesn't say, "Hey, I'm interested and concerned why you feel that way." Like. I feel like I had every right. They're not interested in conversation. He's just like, what? Let's have this other conversation about the fact that you won't say I'm your boyfriend. Like, what? Why did we have that scene then?
Well, but then what's really frustrating about that scene, and this is kind of talking about the movie wanting to have its cake and eat it too, right, is that they have this whole fight about what they are and whatever, and in relation to this fight, and him sticking up for her and whatever, and then he storms out and he goes home, and they have their emotional night apart from each other, and then she shows up in the rain in his fucking doorway being like, "I'm sorry, like, I didn't mean to, I shouldn't have said all that stuff." Like, that is, at some stage, like, I understand, like, she has no obligation to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character to give him anything beyond what she gives him. But on the other hand, it's like, you are a person, you know what people feel. You know how people feel about things. If you're showing up in the rain in his doorway being like, "I'm sorry, thank you for sticking up for me," I don't know. I feel like you're sending some mixed fucking signals.
There are some mixed signals happening here.
So that is the thing about this. I'm sure you talked about the manic pixie dream girl archetype over and over on this series, and of course Zoe in this movie is one of them. But it is obviously a problem of the character being constructed solely to elicit change and expectations from the man in it. But also, if somebody that is the problem with this character type, is like, if somebody behaved like this in your life and you were a real person, you would also be driven insane by what is going on, what the mixed signals that you are getting from this person, which is the story point to drive Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character forward. Mm-hmm. But it is, again, the message of the movie is that women are demons. And that you invest, they solicit all this psychic and emotional and physical energy from you, and then they do whatever they want, and you have no way to control or predict it at all, and you are left with the torrent of destruction that they wreak in your in your emotional life.
But I feel like the point of the movie at the end, like, is at least reaching for the idea that, like, that's how he's perceiving her. Mm-hmm. The reality is that she's a complex person with thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And he didn't really recognize those things or give a shit about that. But it just doesn't really hammer that home at all. She still seems like a piece of paper.
It's because the movie wants us to have our gut drop when we find out that she's engaged too, right?
Which is
like,
insane.
We are supposed to be Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like, we're supposed to be seeing that and being like, wait, but she said she didn't want anything serious.
Yeah.
What?
So we actually we had to pause this movie and do some math at the end and, like, really go to the number tracker and, like, track all the numbers, because Okay, again, to give the
Which, by the way, found the only definitive 500 Days of Summer in order with days tracked on GitHub.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
So shout out
Shout
to whoever
GitHub.
put that on GitHub.
But like, okay, so the first
Beautiful.
whole part of the movie, like her whole like, can you do your impression? I don't really want
I'm Zoe Deschanel, and I don't want anything serious. Beep bop doop
But
bop bop.
but it's like there's no explanation. She's like, well, you don't want anything serious. Why? I'm just not into it right now. I used to date a guy.
People
with a
get
huge
hurt.
hog.
I like to be independent. You see.
Yeah,
You know what it is? She even says, this is part of the mixed signal of all this shit, is that she says her reason for not wanting to get into something serious with somebody is because people's feelings get mixed up in it, and then they get hurt, and she doesn't want to hurt people. And then she just does that.
Okay, so I believe we tracked this out. I might not be like totally right. Is that so? She spent something like 250 days from like the moment they like first
January
kissed,
to November.
January to November, being in this wishy-washy relationship with this guy who's like clearly like in a suicidal love with her, that she's like, I'm like 50-50 on this. That she doesn't want to commit on because she doesn't want to hurt this guy. Breaks up with him in November. From there, the wedding that they both go to is in
So they break up on day 290, and then they see each other
Absurd.
at the wedding. Oh God, 408.
So
Okay.
100 days and change later.
3 months.
Three months after
four
she
months.
broke up with this guy, and there was no implication that she was seeing anybody else during this. 3 months afterwards, she has met a man, and in between the wedding and 1 week later her house party, they've gotten engaged. So 3 months later, she is, after being terminally non-committal, met a guy, formed a relationship enough to be ready to get married, and then invites him to a house party at which either her new fiance is either not there, or she doesn't deign to introduce Tom to her new fiance there as, by the way, I'm getting married and this is the guy. It's
Right.
like the math portion of it is, even if you accept the premise of like, the reason I couldn't commit to you is because I just knew my heart wasn't there, and the reason I knew that my heart wasn't there is because when I met this new man, my heart was there immediately. That timeline is still wild and should leave,
But not impossible.
not impossible, but
That's
which
not-
should,
Not
that's
impossible, no.
impossible, Chris.
but it should leave Tom. But it should leave Tom going.
I'm gonna start every
No,
time I
dude,
need to bother
yeah.
Chris with female problems. I'm gonna use my Zoe Deschanel voice.
It should hopefully leave Tom going like, oh wait, this woman is cuckoo, and I should.
Yes.
Well,
That was
woman
my
is not who
takeaway
I
when I saw
thought.
that. I was like, "Oh, Tom, good job,
Dodged a
dude.
bullet,
You dodged
bro.
it. She's a nut."
But the thing is like the movie's so poorly written and like her character's so underdeveloped. You could absolutely read this as her just being like, I was fucking this guy and was really open and honest about how I didn't want a relationship with him. And then he would like scream at me and then I just broke up with him.
Yeah.
And then I had a normal life after that.
You know what?
And like,
If this movie had any fucking balls at all, if this movie had anything to say whatsoever, when they talk at the park and he asks her what the fuck happened, she'd say, "We weren't exclusive."
yeah, it should have.
That would be a
Wow.
fucking perspective.
That you're so
would be
right.
a fucking turn.
You are so right.
It's
And my
absolutely
Shyamalan
true.
twist.
Yeah.
I've been fucking
Like
this
it's
guy.
like I was
the
fucking him
entire time.
the whole time.
The whole time. We
It was
never had a
500 days of
discussion.
ritual, y'all.
And then Jake Gyllenhaal. And then Jake Gyllenhaal fills his pocket with rocks and walks into that. Jake Gyllenhaal. Sorry, fuck it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Whoa.
It's the J and the G.
Yeah, I understand.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt fills his pockets with rocks and just walks into that little municipal fountain and drowns himself.
Yeah, but he'd keep the headphones on, listening to the Smiths.
Yeah. Please,
Yeah,
let me get what I
sing
want.
me to
as he
sleep.
puts the gun in his mouth.
It's Sing Me to Sleep. It's got to be.
Yeah,
You're so right.
but that's what I'm saying is that like I think that it's very possible she was just like, yeah, I'm fucking a coworker because he's kind of cute and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he's not emotionally mature enough for me to be like, I'm not interested in you. So she leaves him and then
Yeah.
marries the guy she was dating.
He's cute. I like how he dresses like an adjunct professor.
Now, come on, Jason Gordon-Levitt is hot, right?
He's
we
a
all
cutie.
agree on this.
He's an H&M clothes hanger in this movie.
Yes.
The fact that his sort of like makeover moment is that he upgrades from wearing a cardigan with a button down and tie to like an actual suit. I'm like, wow, that's growth, I guess.
With his fucking hair slicked back.
Yeah.
What is that about?
He turns into Patrick Bateman
Yeah.
for some reason.
You know, architects, those classically slick business guys.
You say Patrick Bateman. I would love like a fantasy sequel to this that is his life. He gets the architect firm job. It's like 2 years later, and he is just like psychopathically like slaying pussy. Just like fucking
flexing in
people
the
and
mirror
then being
as
like,
he's
get the fuck out of my apartment, and just like going back out and getting into like
I'm not looking for anything.
Just
serious.
he's ritualistically just like swiping Tinder looking for girls with names that have any relation to like a
it's
season or a month or whatever.
Autumn, May, June.
He gets on Raya and dates January.
Her name is Monday. It counts.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Wednesday Addams.
Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's what he does.
He
Yeah,
builds the One World Trade Center.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. But like, of course, you're not getting any architecture jobs, dude. All you keep doing is inventing a square, tall building.
Yeah, you just draw a building, kind of. They couldn't even bother to do like the most minuscule of research on like what does an architect talk like.
Yeah.
They literally have the moment he starts talking about architecture for real, they close a door in front of it just to avoid writing any more than they had to.
Yeah,
Like someone having sex in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then you go out the window.
They also do that. It's a weirdly sexless movie. The only time they have sex on screen is under a
In the shower.
is in a shower. You see them behind the curtain, kind of.
And they're like, they're planning it out like it's a play. They're like, all right,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and then they fall over.
That's another like real like cringy moment because it's like there's just they're trying to depict the like cool fun part of the relationship, and like one of the like they're being cute in IKEA and they're like hanging out, and then like the one like fun sexy thing they do is that like she's at a video store and she takes him to the back room, instigates renting a porno, watching it, and then says we should do what's happening in the porno in the shower.
Yeah.
To be like the one part of like sexiness in this movie is being like, okay, and then of course Zooey Deschanel will initiate literally pornographic sex with him that you won't see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not allowed.
And they're not horny in the moments. There
They're
isn't like an
cuddling and eating
ounce of
popcorn.
sexuality. They're watching it like it's a regular movie.
And then she's like, we
They're
should
like,
do
wow,
that.
this is interesting. Interesting development that they're fucking in a shower now.
Maybe they had never seen sex before.
And they're like, oh, okay,
That's how it works.
we should.
I think we could do that.
Yeah, this movie was written by an incel, very clearly.
Yes.
Because the movie opens, we
We didn't
neglected
talk
to
about
say-
this. This is
this
the
is
most
this is
wild part
wild.
of this thing.
And it completely colors the rest of the movie because you could,
Yeah.
if this isn't here, you can almost read it as basically like a kid sort of realizing I was an asshole, I was a selfish, sort of misogynistic bitch, and I grew up, and like that's the movie. But like the opening what do you call it? The whatever, the
Title
on
prologue,
black
preamble on black is like, this is a work of fiction, has no relation to anybody living or dead, especially not Jenny Beckman, bitch. And it's
Movie
like
opens with calling a woman a bitch. That
Yes.
rocks.
a real
real
person.
woman.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it's
No, it's I've looked it up.
Oh, you did?
She's a real lady that the screenwriter dated.
What?
It's
I
not.
would have,
It's
even if
not
I
a joke.
was, even if I was mad, even if I was like, I'd have to be so fucking mad. Like, I definitely would have put a fake name there just because I would have.
You have some sort of sense of like self shame or whatever that you would.
Jesus Christ.
No, this is a real person who watched
Like,
this movie in the theater and was like, wait, what the fuck?
Maybe you could like wind that back by having when it fades to credits, be like go do another one that's like,
I'm sorry, Jenny.
Yeah, basically that's like this
didn't mean
This film is dedicated to all the hurt women out there, especially you, Jenny Pickman. I treated you wrong, or something. Something like that. That like makes it like a cute foil that mirrors the arc of the film or something. But the fact that it starts with him, the screenwriter calling his literal ex-girlfriend a bitch, really gives you what you need to take away, what this movie wants you to take away. Again,
right.
That women are demons and that men give them everything that they want or that they could possibly have in their souls and hearts. And it's still not enough. And then they go marry some fucking asshole you never meet.
Some jabroni.
You never even see his face.
He probably has a bigger dick than you.
Probably does. That's a thing for her.
Also, opening with that statement, and then the first time we meet Summer, she is an employee at the same place that this guy and his friend work at. And the idea that she might not give them the time of day beyond her perfunctory role in a corporation, she is called a super skank.
Yeah.
God forbid the secretary she doesn't even work for you. If the secretary is going to fuck anybody, as we've watched Mad Men, you fuck your boss.
It's the boss.
Yeah.
Because you want to have a better job.
Yeah, this guy in the fucking H&M cardigan cannot advance your career. You're just fucking him for charity.
Yeah.
For fun.
She doesn't want it, man.
So let's talk about it in the context of the Twee Thousands.
Yeah.
It is. What does it have? It has the sad guy money shot kind of, but the movie isn't directed very well.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a real identity very
So I was going to say this is an interesting one because it is not stylish almost ever. There's not a lot of cool stuff until like the very, very end.
Well, it has needle drops and it has the twee drawing interstitial titles, but besides that, it looks like a made-for-TV movie.
I would argue the expectations versus reality segment is the closest I can think of anything iconic about this movie in the twee context.
So that's what I was referring to as the cool part towards the end. Yes. Otherwise, it looks like when I looked that the guy directed Amazing Spider-Man, I was like, this looks like Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The other part I will shout out is after they first sleep together, and he has the musical number dance song
that is very fun.
Set to Make My Dreams by Hall & Oates. Because even now, watching it and remembering the first time that you sleep with a paramour, it do be like that.
It do be like that. And I would also argue that like basic white boy gets a little bit quirked up to a musical number, basically invented Bo Burnham. So it's got a lot to answer for in that category.
That's very true.
Very true.
It might have invented YouTube in general.
Had the little Disney bird on his shoulder.
Yeah.
No, I was reading in the Wikipedia that is the only scene in which anyone else wears the color blue, and that was a decision by the costume designer because that's the moment after they fuck for the first time, and he's like, the entire world is reflected her, and she's the only one. So it's like they have little like ideas, but like the director just doesn't know what he's doing.
What is blue? Like,
well, because she's got blue eyes, and so she's the only one who wears blue. Like her whole apartment is blue.
Yeah, but she's.
No, it's not very deep or anything. I'm just saying they tried a little to have some visual consistency.
It's like the least summer color there is.
Yeah,
but you don't think of blue as a summer color?
No, it's a cold color.
I guess that's true.
She should be wearing yellow all the time.
That's true, but her eyes can't be yellow.
That's fine. You don't have to match your eyes to your clothes.
She's a demon with yellow eyes.
Are blue.
Yes, maybe she does have yellow eyes. So the movie doesn't look very good. It's a very drab looking movie, which we mentioned before. But it does try to like, it's just, I feel like this is the perfect ending for the Twee Thousands because these sort of things that we've been talking about for the past 2 months, like are here, but like, perfunctorily and like obligatory,
like
where it's just like, where it's just like we had to do this because this is how you make an indie movie. You
Yeah.
have the sketchy drawings, you've got the needle drops, you've got a sad guy, you've got the manic pixie dream girl.
You've got the like overt conversation about important music.
You
know,
have the-
her literally just saying the Smiths.
Yeah, I also like the Smith.
But the first thing she says is just the Smiths.
The classic implication that if you listen to the right kind of cool music, then you deserve the attraction of beautiful women.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
It's weird because it's so often lampooning those things. Like the little girl is like, just because she's into the same weird shit you are doesn't mean she's gonna like you or she's your and she's correct like all of the time. So it just really doesn't know where it's coming from. Like it does seem like an incel misogynist movie directed by someone who's trying to make it not that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it just feels like it's fighting with itself all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie
and
makes
so
my skin crawl. I really don't like it.
Yeah. It's probably it might be my least favorite of the ones that we've watched. It's between this and Elizabethtown.
Elizabethtown is fucking insane, and I almost like that more because of how bizarre it is,
Yeah.
and you can kind of read.
There's more laughs. I feel like there's more laughs in Elizabethtown than in
Well,
this.
wait,
Did it get a laugh out of anybody?
There was like a moment or two where I feel like we had a chuckle. I mean, I was obviously laughing at it a few times. I'm trying to remember.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I can't recall actually.
I think I had like a bit of a like chuckleish smile when they did the big dance number after he has sex.
right. That's enjoyable.
That's kind of funny. There's a couple of things that are set up to be jokes that don't really land. Like the anal girl thing didn't really.
That's
didn't
not
really
very
hit.
funny. Well, because it's so insane. It's like they called you had anal sex, girl. Oh no, it's something else. Okay, I guess. Yeah, there's a lot of like it's for this genre, it's pretty raunchy. Like it feels like it's more the humor is more like on the not raunchy, but like
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
bathroom
like
humor.
it's raunchy humor, but not raunchy like subject matter. Because again, they don't fuck.
Right.
There's no sex in this.
That's
movie.
right. But it feels like
You see the outline of a man's penis once.
it almost has like a disease of like Judd Apatow, where it's like the guys are supposed to be like, we're stupid guys. We're like, it's like you know what it feels like? It feels like Friends. Like the movie feels like the show Friends.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I was watching this, and I have no idea what order it was, but I was watching this being like, imagining, what is that chick's name? Meriwether Elizabeth or something?
Was it Mary Elizabeth Winstead?
No, the person who created New Girl.
Oh, I don't
Phoebe
know that.
Waller-Bridge. Or
Yeah.
no?
Elizabeth, it might be Elizabeth Meriwether or something like that. Because I'm imagining watching this and being like, looking at Zooey Deschanel just like slogging through this thankless role and just being like, looking at all the trappings, looking at living in a big ass loft in downtown LA, looking at these three like supposedly raunchy dipshit guys, and one of them is supposed to be like kind of cute, and Zooey Deschanel, and just watching this being like, wonder if any of this was like 10% fun. And then being
That's
like,
good,
oh,
yeah.
I should create the program New Girl,
That's a good
starring
point.
Zooey
Yeah.
Deschanel
Yeah.
immediately after this.
Yep.
Is she good on that?
That show's good.
She's adorkable.
But is Zooey Deschanel good in it?
Yeah.
Zoe Deschanel is not good ever.
Because that's what I was
She's
thinking.
the-
Is
she's
the other
just
thing that I
fun.
was thinking about this? Is she's so
terrible
bad
at it.
in this movie, and she's so bad in Almost Famous.
She's really bad.
I'm not sure if she can act.
She can't act.
I think New Girl is a totally acceptable television comedy.
it's fine.
It is a solid B to B plus almost every episode.
Okay.
Which for a TV comedy that has that ran for like 10
On
seasons or
Fox.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah,
you can hit that
network
BB
sitcom.
plus average every time, you're doing great.
I don't disagree with that, but I still think Zoe Deschanel is just not good at acting and didn't ever really seem to want to do it and was sort of maybe forced into it.
But she was like, "Oh, but I look like this."
Well,
You
I
gotta
know.
put a
no,
camera
What
on
else
me.
am I gonna do?
but that's what I mean is like her parents are actors, her sister's an actor, like she was just like had nepotism. They
Oh,
were
yeah,
like,
I
"Do you want to
forgot.
act?" And she's like, I'll give it a shot. And so like every fucking nerd guy was like, I want to fuck this person so bad. I'm going to put her in my movie. I think that's way more about why she is in movies than her like passion for acting.
I always forget that her sister is Bones.
Emily
Her sister is
Deschanel.
All right, well,
Her sister is Bones.
The show Bones.
Yeah, I know.
I hate to direct another person's podcast, but I know this is your last episode, and I don't know if you're doing a wrap-up episode, but I would love to hear your, before we sign off, which we have to do because we do have a reservation at Tom Tom sometime.
Oh my God.
In a little bit. But what are your rankings of the movies?
Ooh, well, I think probably the best one. I mean, it's got to be Royal Tenenbaums. It's got to be
Royal
the best one
Tenenbaums for sure.
But
Yeah.
but we're calling that a pre Twee Thousands,
proto
movie,
Twee Thousands.
So taking those off the table, just doing the solidly Twee Thousands ones.
Wait, you're saying
Taking
starting with Lost in Translation or no?
No, not even Lost in Translation.
Okay, so Garden State, Huckabees, Elizabethtown, Little Miss Sunshine, Juno, and 500 Days of Summer.
It's got to be Little Miss Sunshine. It's got to be number one.
No way, it's
probably.
Huckabees for me.
Yeah,
Huckabees rules.
I think they're
very
a close
good.
1 and 2, but I think Little Miss Sunshine kind of edges it out based on the performances.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, the acting is great in Little Miss Sunshine. I think it doesn't. It's still sort of just a sort of bland movie on. It doesn't reach very high highs for me, but I like it too. I mean, we gave it a recommend, so
Yeah.
I'd recommend both of those. Juno, I'm still pretty negative on.
I'm a little warmer than you are on
He's
it.
a little warmer, but I would say I'd probably put Garden State.
Garden State pretty low, not the bottom.
Yeah,
And then it's between this and Elizabethtown for the bottom
Yeah.
for me. I'm
Lost in
probably
Translation is maybe the worst.
worse than this.
Dude, I fucking hate Lost in
Come
Translation.
on.
That movie sucks.
I mean, it does suck. I don't like it, but not worse than this.
It's like, what? There's nothing redeemable about it. Like, it's just racism and boring.
Yeah, when's the last time you guys watched Lost in Translation?
Oh man,
I have not seen it probably since it came out.
I saw it maybe last year or something
When did you watch Lost in Translation?
on a plane. I think I actually think it was on a plane.
I'd recommend giving it a revisit with the idea in mind that it is The Revenant where the snow is Japanese people.
Yeah, that's how it is.
That's what the movie is.
The only
Anyway, would you
of the-
guys...
Oh, what's that?
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to be conscious of your reservation. I was going to ask if you guys would recommend this movie, 500 Days of Summer.
It's unless you're doing a podcast on it, it's not worth visiting.
Okay, so
Unless you're in this specific situation.
unless you're on this
no.
podcast right now, no. I mean, it's definitely a time capsule of a certain. I think maybe it would be for Gen Z, for example, maybe should watch this to be like to understand
be like
how
this.
far we've come. I think in some general social attitudes toward women in particular,
Yeah.
even men too. It's like a
it is
time capsule thing.
And it's weird because I feel like it got worse because like in the 80s, like if you watch Harry Met Sally, like that's not a misogynist movie.
No.
No.
It likes women, and it's just a cute movie about two people who like each other but have these like sort of hang-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get
it's
over
definitely
it.
not women or demons.
Right, and
or
I
just
feel
like
like
completely blank vessels for male attention.
yeah, and I feel like the 90s, the end of the 90s into the 2000s, there was just this hot hatred streak that was happening in
Yeah.
culture where it was just like these bitches
Just
Yeah.
a weird
do not know
regression.
their play. Yeah.
You know what I thought of that I forgot to mention is an interesting sort of like couplet for this movie is Chasing Amy.
Which is a
Ooh,
great
yeah.
movie.
This is a great movie, but it's a very similar thematic thing of like men's assumptions and men's entitlement around women and what women mean to them, and how that's like a decade before this by a much less renowned filmmaker who's kind of known for being quite a bit more crass and
It's
has
still
so much more to say that's
Yes.
way more respectful of women.
Yes.
Those first 3 Kevin Smith movies are surprisingly thoughtful and trenchant.
yeah,
Yeah.
bangers. I like Dogma too.
Oh yeah, Dogma's also great. It's just that he got stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
After
he
Dogma,
It's Jersey Girl.
Jersey
Jersey
Girl.
Girl is
And
where
then
he
he was
because
just like, I
everybody
guess I'm just
rejected
gonna-
it so
yeah.
badly.
Which is such a shame because it's such an okay movie. He was
Yeah.
really trying something. Yeah, but oh well.
I always have a soft spot for Smith.
Me too. So I will also not recommend this movie.
Yeah.
I think it is it's just not even well made or enjoyable. The needle drops suck. It's not really fun to even hear any of these sons.
You don't like Regina Spektor?
I love Regina Spektor, kind of, but like it's just like
She
I don't know.
starts warbling, and you're like, "Make it stop."
I don't mind her, but she's it just doesn't. It's not like wow, beautiful. I don't know. The needle drops are bad. The movie's bad. It's a bad movie.
Yeah.
Also,
It's full of hate.
One of the worst portrayals of karaoke as a concept
yes.
that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to stick that in there of just like this movie. I don't think anyone who worked on this movie has done karaoke.
The way you can tell, the same way that you said earlier, that he starts talking about architecture and the doors close. You can tell that nobody actually knows or enjoys karaoke because they describe the karaoke party they're going to as an all-you-can karaoke night, which is like,
like you have to pay or something.
yeah, you pay $5 and you can sing as like it doesn't. Nobody
It
who's
doesn't
done
make any
karaoke has
sense.
ever gone to a place that is advertised all-you-can karaoke. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a concept.
This movie
There's
is
no a la carte karaoke.
this movie is written by incel like hikikomori's. Like they
Also, nobody's
they've never been
engaging with the
outside.
karaoke, which is very weird. Like everybody is at their seat, like watching
Watching.
karaoke from afar.
Like
and,
it's a show.
Yeah, nobody's like up front singing along or anything.
Yeah.
That's not fucking karaoke.
No.
Yeah.
Not my karaoke.
Not my karaoke.
Not my problem. All right. I thank you guys so much for coming on the show, Chris and Molly. Tell the people where they can find you.
I produce a podcast called Chapo Trap House. We were going on tour. When is this coming out? Monday?
Monday.
Yeah.
You can see us October 1st in Chicago.
Hey.
The Vic Theater, October 1st. You can
The
see
Windy
us at
City.
Los Angeles, October 8th at the Theater at the East Hotel. In New York, October 14th at Town Hall Theater. And Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at Revolution on October 30th. All dates and ticket links are at chapotraphouse.com/live. Also, for all you deep Chris Wade heads, Chapo heads, I will be having a new history series about the 30 Years' War coming out with Matt sometime, I believe, in November. That series will be called Hell on Earth.
Hell on
You can
Earth.
find that at the Chapo Patreon, patreon.com/Chapo Trap House. Molly, do you want to plug our stuff?
Yes, we have a podcast called And Introducing, a podcast about words about music. You can find it wherever podcasts are found. We just did an episode on Flea that I think
Flea!
was really fun. Flea from the
Nice.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. And
I love
then-
that guy.
Yeah,
He's great.
he's great. I stan actually now. I'm a Flea.
Very photogenic penis.
Really did not come up.
I'm always looking at it.
In the video from Woodstock '99 when they're doing Stand Next to Your Fire, he's naked and his penis looks incredible.
Pops.
Which I'm sorry,
It
that's
really
actually,
pops. It
that's
looks
a
good.
skill. I would say most penises are not photogenic. So good
No.
job, Flea. So we have
Especially
that.
not like on a moment's notice, stripped at a music festival.
Right, you need at least half a day to like fully prepare.
To fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we have and Introducing, and then we also have a podcast where I am reading Chris the entirety of the book Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. It's called Infinite Cast. If you Google Infinite Cast, it shows you the IMDb of the cast for the movie Infinite. So I would recommend Googling Infinite Cast Podcast, and you will find
Infinite Cast Podcast.
it. Yeah, 100%.
Well, great. Thanks, guys, so much for coming on. Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
reservations at Dorsia.
Yes.
Yes. Oh God, I wish.
But until next time, that has been the Twee Thousands. It's been a great time doing this Twee Thousands. I am so sad that it's over. Next week we'll be back with Halloween times.
Yep.
We're going spooky mode.
Woo!
We're recording on the autumnal equinox, so happy that for everybody.
Well,
Otherwise,
celebrate.
Thanks for listening to Generation Lost. If you'd like to hear more of our show, you can go to patreon.com/Generation Lost to hear a bonus episode every week where we talk about the movie news, letters from listeners. We rank all the movies we've ever done. It's a fun time. Hang out in the Discord with us. Follow us on Twitter at GenLostPod. Follow us individually from there, and we will see you next time. And until next time, that's movies.
That's another thing we say now.
That's wonderful.
Reverend, is this some conspiracy? Crucified for no sins, image beneath me, lost within my plans for life. It all seems so unreal. I'm a man caught in half in this world, left in my misery.